you do have a cell phone, please remember to put it on silent at this time. Yeah, two, and oh, sorry. Two, and then you could be on three right here. If we have these people on this side, if they're not speaking. Okay. For the speaking, if I need. Okay.
So after the handshake, you're going to follow that. Just meander in, I think. As soon as he's done, it's not like
Again, if you are standing, can you please move to the back of the room and clear the sides? Thank you so much.
do it as he, you know what I'm saying?
Ladies and gentlemen, please at this time take your seats as our program will begin momentarily. Thank you.
And now,
Sure. What's that? What? Watch? Yeah, yeah.
and now, we bring you the following live press announcement. Our regularly scheduled program will resume following the announcement.
Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Councilmember Matt Fruman from Ward 3, and I'm going to be the MC for this event. And we're going to start out by inviting the Honor Guard to come out and present the colors and the national anthem. Thank you. This is a somber event and also one of real gratitude. When I think about 9/11, I remember it, as all of you do, crystal clearly. Being at my office, people saying, come here, look and see what's happening on TV. The fear that gripped us all, I remember walking home from my office in DuPont Circle up to AU Park, seeing hundreds of people walking up Connecticut Avenue, not knowing what was going on around us. Going to pick up our kids at school, where some of the parents of those kids worked at the Pentagon, and the fear that we had around that. Going to our kids' soccer games and the eerie silence of no planes for such a period of time, and then that sense of kind of things coming back to normal when the planes came. So I felt the fear, and I think lots of us felt the fear in this country and in the District of Columbia, but not everybody's response was one of fear. Our first responders responded with incredible courage and tenacity. The work that they did on 9/11 to try to save lives and make a difference really shone as a beacon to us all about the importance of public service and the deep debt of gratitude that we owe to our first responders. And so now we take this day to remember again what they did then, but also that's the work that our first responders do every day, putting themselves out at risk to protect and defend us. And we are so grateful for your work and what you do for our community. So thank you very much. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker, who needs no introduction. I love it when she says how proud she is to be the mayor of her hometown. And we all know what a tenacious advocate she is for public safety and for the fire department. I'd like to welcome the mayor of the District of Columbia, Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning. And as we have done on many September 11th recognition days, we are proud to be with the men and women of DC Fire and EMS and to be here at Engine 16. I want to thank Councilmember Matt Fruman for continuing this tradition of calling district leaders to this firehouse in particular, as the firehouse who serves our downtown city hall and responded to the Pentagon. I want to recognize former council member for Ward 3, Mary Chay, who began this tradition in her leadership in Ward 3 and certainly in supporting public safety district-wide. I, too, want to recognize other members of the council, especially, including the chairman of the council, Phil Mendelson, and the Attorney General for the District of Columbia, Brian Schwab. This day, as I'm sure many of us were watching the TV and participating in moments of silence, recognizing the horrific day that touched us all. It was a dark day. It was 23 years ago, and our world changed forever. We watched in collective disbelief in real time as we lost nearly 3,000 people in New York City, at the Pentagon, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We remember today the New Yorkers, Washingtonians, our fellow Americans, and people from around the world who were in those buildings, on those planes, and also at the Pentagon. We remember 3 beautiful children, our children, who were aboard Flight 77, Bernard Brown, Asia Cotton, and Rodney Dickens. We remember our teachers, who were taking our children on an adventure. Sarah Clark, James Debonair, Hilda Taylor, Ann Judge, and Joe Ferguson. We remember fellow Washingtonians also on that flight, Paul Ambrose, Karen Kincaid, and David Charlebois. We remember Washingtonians who perished at the Pentagon. Ronald Millam, Carol Hammond, Brenda Kegler, and Edna Stevens. We shall never forget them. We pray for their loved ones and their families. And we lift up the many stories of heroism and courage from September 11th. The firefighters doing their job, as they do every day, who ran, sped, raced, held onto the backs of trucks to get to the World Trade Center. We remember the selfless service and sacrifice of the first responders, their families, the terror they must have experienced, but their willingness to give up their lives for their fellow Americans. We remember those who lost their lives and the many more who have lost their lives in the days, months, and years since. We remember the selflessness of the D.C. Air National Guard, who had to rush to the sky, scrambled to protect our city, our nation's capital, our democracy. We remember the heroic passengers on Flight 93 who sacrificed their lives to prevent an attack on Washington, D.C. And on behalf of our city, I thank our first responders who continue to protect and serve. Chief Donnelly and all the members of D.C. Fire and EMS, including those members who are here who were serving on September 11th, thank you. Chief Smith, and to all the members of the Metropolitan Police Department who supported all firefighting and life-saving efforts and protected our city, thank you. Director McGaffin and the brave 911 call takers who answer calls day in and day out from Washingtonians and our visitors who are experiencing their worst moments, including on this day, when all manner of communications was altered, affected, or stopped. But our call takers continue to do their jobs, and they do so every single day for the people of Washington. Thank you. I want to thank the D.C. National Guard and all Washingtonians who continue to serve in our military, here at home and abroad. And I want to thank all of our residents for remembering our brave first responders. Know that when they wake up in the morning and leave their families, they come to Washington, come to their jobs, come to their duty stations, go to their police cars, fire trucks, and engines and ambulances to serve. It is our responsibility to support them in every way that they can, with fair policies and laws, equipment and training, and always, always, always living up to our promises. I am proud to be mayor of my hometown, but more than that, I am proud of our first responders. Thank you very much. So with that, Chief, on behalf of our entire administration and 700,000 Washingtonians, I present this 2024 Day of Remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bowser. Mayor Bowser did a wonderful job of urging us all to remember lots of different folks who were touched by 9/11. And I think before I bring up our next speaker, I would like to ask that we have a moment of silence in honor of all of those folks. Thank you very much. So next up is our wonderful Attorney General who, I don't know, you guys are pumping out press releases every day going after wrongdoing in the District of Columbia. So grateful to you and so grateful to you for the work you're doing to promote public safety and support our first responders. The Attorney General of the District of Columbia, Brian Schwalb.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Councilmember Fruman, Madam Mayor, Mr. Chairman, Captain, honored guests. I'm very pleased to be here as your elected Attorney General. September 11th, 2001 is a day that changed all of our lives forever. No matter who you are, no matter where you were, life before that day and life after that day were different. All of us remember exactly where we were that morning. I was around the corner on my way to a mediation. It was an eerily familiar day because it was a beautiful September morning, early fall, much like this morning. And yet it changed our lives and my life. Many of us lost family members that day and friends and neighbors that terrible morning. All of us lost a sense of security, maybe that naive sense we had that we were somehow immune from being targets of terror, even in our nation's capital. We all lost that sense of innocence of what life was like before 9/11, before the term Homeland Security and TSA and pre-check became part of our regular lexicon. It was a different time that changed that morning. It's hard to believe that 23 years have gone by since that morning. In some way, the memories are as vivid and raw as ever. And in some ways, it's very hard to remember what life was like before 9/11. I'm very honored to be here with you this morning to commemorate the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks, to remember, to reflect, and to mourn. Today, we are honoring the victims of the attacks, the nearly 3,000 people, 2,977 to be precise, that lost their lives in those horrific acts of terror. We still stand with their memory and their families who today, 23 years later, are still bearing the grief of having their loved ones taken from them, stolen from them way too soon. We also are here to honor the brave men and women who helped in the immediate and aftermath of the attacks, our first responders, our military, our engineers, and thousands of volunteers, people who ran towards danger and responded in the immediacy of the moment, and those who responded in the days and the weeks and the months that followed. We stop to thank them and honor them and remember their service. We're also here to honor the resilience and fortitude of our country, the sense of unity, the shared purpose that we as Americans and as residents of the District of Columbia felt for our fellow citizens. 9/11 is a day that we must always commemorate. It's a critical reminder of just how hard the work of first responders is and how they do it as a matter of course, day in and day out. It takes a special kind of person to be a first responder. People who want to put their community first, who want our community to be better and safer. And at the end of the day, that's what all of us in government, at the Office of Attorney General and everywhere else, are committed to doing, to making sure people who live, work, and visit the District of Columbia have lives that are better and safer. And first responders, the folks who serve our fire department and on EMS and our police department, are committed to doing that, and we are grateful. We need to continue to cultivate and recruit and support talent to ensure that we have such passionate, courageous people ready to serve us, ready to make a difference in our communities. And although 9/11 is perhaps one of the most public examples of what public service and sacrifice look like and what first responders do, the truth is they're making our lives better through their sacrifices every day and we have to stop and appreciate that. So on behalf of the Office of Attorney General, the residents of the District of Columbia, and me and my family, thank you to all of you for what you do. It's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that those who take the biggest risk on behalf of our city and our community are recognized, just not on 9/11, but every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Schwab. We have one current council member and one former council member, and I'd like to invite Chairman Mendelson and the former Ward 3 council member, Mary Chay, to come up and offer some remarks. Councilmember Chay is my predecessor. She is also the creator of this event and the resolution that we will talk about from the council. So, Chairman Mendelson and former council member Chay.
Good morning. I was going to acknowledge the presence of Councilmember Chay, but she's just been acknowledged and is going to speak after me. Madam Mayor and Mr. Attorney General and chiefs, both chiefs and all distinguished guests. I'm not going to speak very long because pretty much everything I was going to say has already been said by the three previous speakers. I appreciate that Mayor Bowser read the names of the D.C. school children and teachers who lost their lives. That's often forgotten when we think about what happened on 9/11. I have a resolution which I'm going to present in just a second, but I wanted to say this. Why are we here? We've been doing this for 23 years. Why do we do this year after year? Well, one reason is to remember the victims, not just the victims who were D.C. teachers or students or residents, but the approximately 3,000 victims of that day. It's important that we remember. Why else are we here? To thank the first responders. To thank the first responders who responded on 9/11, especially fire and EMS, but law enforcement more broadly. Here and at the Pentagon, which involved D.C. resources, as we know, but also across the country, and especially in New York City, to thank them. But to thank as well the first responders today, because what they did then, they're ready to do every day, and it's important that we recognize and thank that. But then third, to remind ourselves whether we are ready in every way that we can be, should something as horrible as that happen again. And to think through and to reflect on and to remember where there were shortcomings on that day, because there were. The most obvious, which I remember, is that the federal government shut down, said everybody could go home, while the military district closed the bridges. So everyone was stuck in traffic, including everybody that Councilmember Fruman saw gridlocked on his walk up Massachusetts Avenue. So it's important that we not just reflect on what happened on 9/11 in 2001, but that we also reflect on where there are lessons that we need to constantly remind ourselves so that we are always prepared should this happen again. That is why we do this year after year and have done this for 23 years, started by my colleague, Councilmember Chay. The council does have a resolution. I have to sign it, so I'm going to give it to you, Chief, but I'm going to have to take it back and sign it. But basically, this resolution, the whole council voted to remember September 11th and to recognize and thank the first responders and to honor this occasion. So I'm not going to read all of it, but Chief, and then you have to give it back to me to sign.
I will absolutely.
When nobody's looking.
Thank you.
Yes. Councilmember Chay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very grateful that I've been given the opportunity to say a few words because I'm so committed to this event of remembrance and commemoration. And I wanted to, again, be part of it. As you know, what happened on 9/11 23 years ago was so horrific, but the bravery and valor of our first responders is a memory that we must always keep alive. Some of the speakers have mentioned some of the things that had happened, but there are many, many images that we could have in mind. The firefighters running into the building knowing they faced grave and imminent danger. And when they were on their way in, nobody refused. Nobody said no. Nobody hesitated for a minute, even though they knew pretty much the fate that likely awaited them. We have to keep the memory of that day and the valor and the courage of the first responders always in mind, which is why this ceremony is so important. It's already been 23 years. I have law students who weren't even born when 9/11 happened. We have to make sure that all of us know and keep in our hearts what happened that day. And so these ceremonies are extremely important, not just for the memory, but also, as the chairman said, the mayor said, to thank all of our first responders for what you do every day. And I also want to remind everybody that many lives were lost or cut short after the event because of the toxic materials that the people had to breathe in. Sometimes it didn't happen until years later. And on that point, you know that we banned fire retardants from furniture. First of all, they were useless, but they were carcinogenic, and they were harming our firefighters when they went in to fight the fire. So I would ask that we be alert to any other toxic materials that endanger our first responders and ban those too. In addition, it's very important that we honor our first responders and make sure that the harms that they suffer after the fact, where cancers sometimes don't manifest until years later, that we make sure that they get what they're entitled to in terms of their workman's compensation and benefits that they are entitled to. And so, so I wanted to join here today to make sure those things are in view as we go forward. But I also wanted to say hi to some of the people I like. And so I'm happy to be able to do that. You know, the first responders, they wrap us in this blanket of security, and we don't always remember to say thank you. But we should say thank you every day. But we're here at this ceremony, and so we offer this collective thank you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Chay. Next up, I'd like to call Chief Donnelly to prepare some remarks. I hope you're not laden with resolutions and have a free hand, but welcome, Chief Donnelly.
Thank you. So thank you, Council Member. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for being here to recognize all of our first responders, the firefighters, the EMTs, the police officers, the 911 call takers, the people in emergency management, and the regular citizens that help us make all this work. I think it's extremely important, and I think when I speak for all the first responders here today, we absolutely feel thanked. So thank you. I want to talk a little bit about my 9/11 experience. We get a few questions about that, and we want to talk to people that worked that day. So I was off that morning, taking my kids to school. Beautiful day, as we've heard. And back before we had phones all the time, you actually listened to WTOP on the radio. And I hear this plane hits the World Trade Center. And up here, I'm thinking, wow, it must be raining in New York, and it's a small plane. So I stopped in somewhere, and I saw on the TV the replay of it. I'm like, ooh, that doesn't look right. and it's really bright. How did that happen? Completely clueless, right? Unaware. And that's something we talked about a minute ago. That day was a changing point. But as I was watching, the second plane flew in, and my brain clicked. It said, wow, something different is here. My next thought was, I got to get to work. I don't know why, but that's what it said. I think that's indicative of who our first responders are. I had a 6-month-old daughter with me, so I dropped her off at a neighbor's house who'd never watched her before, and I'm not sure how I got away with that. But I also talked to my wife, who was at the airport as an employee, and she said, they're chasing us out of here at gunpoint, something about hijacks, and there's a plane on, there was very confusing. I said, well, I'm going to work. I'll see you in about 5 days, I think. And she's like, okay, where are the kids? And I told her, and she's going home. So as I'm coming up the road, I hear on WTOP, all DC firefighters and police officers report back to work. That's pretty remarkable. Sorry. That had been part of our Plan E, which is how we recall the department in a disaster. And that's when it hits you. I don't know why this is emotional, but it is. Coming up 295, the traffic was backed up. I mean, completely bumper to bumper. There were 4 cars around me coming northbound. One was Kurt Hoffman, a DC Fire employee. He rolled down his window and he's like, we're going to work. And there were 2 cars with FOP badges. We went to the firehouse. We get to the firehouse. The engine 15 had already gone on the first alarm. And Dwayne Martin, I don't know if he's here today, but we needed to get the Reserve Rescue Squad, which was one of 4 reserve apparatus we had that day. When we talk about the things we want to do better, council member, that we didn't have the capacity. So Dwayne goes up to 25 engine, he gets the rescue squad and brings it back. And we start putting the little bit of equipment we have on it, and then communications calls the predecessor to the OUC and says, you got to go to the Pentagon. So by that point, we had about 40 people at the firehouse. We had to figure out who's going. So it was order of who came in. So I was first. I didn't, but in maybe the first adult decision of my life, but the decision that put me on the path to be here, I said, I'll stay and do my job at the time, which was a battalion aide, and it was staffing. So about 8 people jumped on the rescue squad and went over to help at the Pentagon. And we saw them 12, 13 hours later when they came back. But the rest of the day was a blur. We were confused. We didn't know who had attacked us, and nobody ever wants to know. You never want to walk down an alley and be punched in the face by somebody you don't know, right? It's scary. We didn't know who Al-Qaeda was, and we didn't ever want that to happen again. It felt real good when the Air National Guard got the F-16s above us. I learned later they weren't armed, but damn, that felt good hearing those jets come in and rock their wings over top of us, for those of you that were here that day. And later that night on Rescue Squad 3, I was running a call, and we came across South Capitol Street Bridge, and the dome of the Capitol was all lit up. The flag was up. It's like, damn, we're doing good. We survived. So never forget. Never forget means remembering that everybody came to work that day, right? Everybody. And that's important because they come to work every day. They've stepped to the plate for the fire this morning on 11th Street. They stepped to the plate on January 6th. They stepped to the plate during the middle of a snowstorm. They stepped to the plate during COVID, and they came to work. That's who our first responders are, and that's very important to remember. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for recognizing us.
And thank you, Chief Donnelly, for all of your leadership and all of the work that you've been doing. Next up is we're here today honoring our firefighters and our first responders and making sure that we appreciate them and express that as clearly as we can. Our next speaker, that's his job every day. As the president of IAFF, Local 36. Dave Hoagland plays that role, and I want to invite Dave to come up. I know that many of the things that Councilmember Chay spoke about, I've heard Dave come and lead advocacy on. We need to stand up for our firefighters and first responders. That's what Dave does every day. Thank you, Dave, for everything that you do.
Today we remember a day that changed our country and the District of Columbia forever. We all remember where we were 23 years ago and the tragic loss of life that was experienced. We responded on that day as a country united to defeat evil through sacrifice, service, resilience, and perseverance. Members of Local 36 embodied those principles and answered the call, said goodbye to their families, and responded after American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon. They set an example through their hard work and sacrifice. It makes me proud that those virtues are still practiced daily by the members of Local 36. Our members humbly serve the district and appreciate the support they receive from its residents and visitors. I'd also be remiss if I didn't communicate my appreciation for the support of our communities and our district leadership, especially Mayor Bowser, AG Schwab, the Mayor's public safety team headed up by Deputy Mayor Apia. Thank you, Director McGaffin and Police Chief Smith for coming as well today, and also Chairman Mendelson, as well as our Master of Ceremonies, Councilmember Fruman, and we also heard from our long, staunch advocate of Local 36, Councilmember Mary Chay. To know we are valued and supported by our city leadership only strengthens our commitment to the core mission that we have, which is to preserve life and property here in the District of Columbia. The toll this profession can take on your both mental and physical health was brought to the forefront when we lost 343 fellow firefighters in New York City that day. Since then, over 370 additional firefighters have died of World Trade Center-related illness. So I want to thank Councilmember Chay here, who was our leading advocate on our own presumptive disability law here in the district, and thank every one of the leaders here today, including Chairman Mendelson and Councilmember Fruman, for their continued commitment to that legislation. It is such a privilege to represent the 1,900-plus members of this department, the silent professionals who sacrifice so much for others. They have the unique charge of protecting this amazing district of ours, which also happens to be our nation's capital. I'm proud to call it home. I thank all of you here today for taking the time to join us, to show your support, as well as your resolve to do good in our great city. District of Columbia firefighters are proud to stand beside you in that endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Hoagland. I want to take a second. Chairman Mendelson talked about that we need to focus on the things that we can do better, the lessons that we learn. And one of the things that's happened since 9/11 is the creation of the agency HCMA. And the director of HCMA, Clint Osborne, is here. They try to coordinate all of the work that we face in the face of an emergency. Thank you, Director Osborne, for your work. Next up is Aretha Lyles, who is the president of Local 3721, and I'd like to invite Aretha to come up.
Good evening, good morning. I'm not sure where we are. It's great to be last because everything that's on this paper, everybody has already said it. So now I can cut it down to about 3 sentences. First of all, I want to start out with thanking our entire community, our entire workforce, and thanking everyone who were at work on 9/11. And I was one of the ones who was at work. And much like the fire chief, I kept seeing these airplanes running to this building, and I thought it was a movie. And I kept saying, why do they keep showing that over and over? So I was at Engine 19, worked overnight, and then went to Engine 6. On my way there, I see this airplane low just fly over the top of my car. And I'm like, wow, that's low. Still didn't know what was going on. So by the time I got to Engine 6, the amazing thing was when it hit the Pentagon, remember everyone's phones went out. It was one phone that worked in the firehouse, literally one. And believe it or not, it was the pay phone. The payphone was the only phone that was working at Engine 6. So I want to jump to, since everything has already been said, we have now arrived at a new generation. We have infants, toddlers, young children of 9/11 who are now adults. And I give pleasure to the fire chief who are probably hiring some of those young people today and making our force stronger. Some of these young people lost their parents on that day. They lost siblings. They lost friends. Much like those who came as the age of the bomb with the Pearl Harbor, 9/11 generation did not seek to grow during a war. So now we know evil came to America and America responded. So now that we're at our 23 years, and 23 years is a very long time, we know that we experienced trauma that day. So as we end our 2024 ceremony celebrating, I want to reach out and let the city know that my members of Local 3721, we feel like if this ever happened again, we're trained, we're ready, we're focused, because we have a fire chief that reaches out and makes sure everyone gets what they need and participate in everything that's going on in this city. And I hope nothing like this ever happen again, but I feel like we're safe under his regime. So, Chief, if you could come forward. I would like to present this plaque from Local 3721 to let you know that we stand behind you. We know that you are always going to say, we're going to always represent us.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our program, but it doesn't bring us to the end of our consciousness of the gratitude that we have for our first responders and the lessons that we need to learn from 9/11 going forward. So thank you very much for taking this moment to appreciate and to send your respect to our first responders and those who are working so hard to keep us safe. Thank you very much and have a great day.
We now return to our previously scheduled program, already in progress.
Move over, so. Right here. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2. She may come closer. She may come closer because they are. Yeah, we good.
Okay.
She may come closer, like maybe to here, because everybody has one.
Are you going to hold the mic?
Yeah. Unless you want to. I'm gonna be.
Let's just be out of all the shots, you know? Yeah.
Well, you don't see me.
Yeah, maybe just back a tiny bit more.
Huh?
You should be fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't you have exclusivity?
No, I'm just following their direction.
I don't think I've ever seen you again.
I try to be behind the camera, not in front of it.
Every day we learn new skills, right?
I can hold it. I can get. Not anymore. I'll be rubbing big gang on that.
Are you good?